everybody. This is our project about the Jewish and Polish narratives of the Holocaust. I'm Hannah.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Lindsay.
And we're going to start with just an overview of the Holocaust and what it was. So, the Holocaust is referring to the murder of about 6 million Jews during World War II, specifically starting in 1939 when Germany invaded Poland and started establishing ghettos and different labor camps. This extermination was carried out predominantly by the Nazi regime, but also included some of their allies, such as Lithuania and Ukraine. And while Jewish people were the focus of extermination during the Holocaust, other groups were also targeted, such as people with disabilities, the Poles, homosexuals, Soviet prisoners of war, as well as civilians. And the Holocaust mainly took place in Eastern Europe. And one idea that arose while we were in Poland was this idea of competition of victimhood. So many groups that have suffered in general will try to claim moral primacy as the real victims, and this plays a role in the Holocaust and creating tension, fueling prejudice rather than solidarity with one another. So after the Holocaust, both Jews and Poles share their experiences of suffering. However, lots of tension can arise because of this idea of competing victimhood, where each group is trying to assert the primacy or uniqueness of their own victimization. While both groups did suffer tremendously, it is well known that the Nazi regime pursued the total biological annihilation of the Jewish people, regardless of their age, background, socioeconomic status, or religious observance, and this led to a complete genocide of the Jewish people. While Poles too faced mass murder, forced labor, displacement, and repression, the Nazi policy did not explicitly aim to eradicate the Polish nation. It was not ethnic or biological elimination like the Jews. And so, for these reasons, the Jewish and Polish wartime experiences, though they both had immense suffering, cannot be considered equivalent.
So, to kind of build on the competition of victimhood, the first narrative I'll be discussing is the Jewish narrative, which is strongly shaped by survivor testimony through institutions such as Yad Vashem, and that preserves personal stories and memories. A key idea is that the second and third generations inherited this trauma that was experienced, even though they didn't directly live through the Holocaust. Just hearing the stories of their relatives is enough to be traumatic. The education and the media also played a major role with museums and films, kind of emphasizing that the Holocaust's uniqueness and their moral lessons. And then some central themes are Jewish victimhood and resistance, the persistence of global anti-Semitism, and the warning of never again. The narrative also acknowledges the complex roles of local populations, including rescuers and collaborators and bystanders. And if we look at this quote by Primo Levi, which states that it happened, therefore it can happen again, this is the core of what we have to say. That kind of builds off of the idea of never again to prevent anything like this from happening. And then the Polish narrative centers on Poland as the victim of World War II, emphasizing the Nazis' occupation and the suffering of Polish citizens. So many people who identify with this perspective stress that Poles were victims rather than perpetrators or bystanders, while at the same time, thousands of Poles are recognized as righteous among the nations for risking their lives to save Jews. The narrative is shaped today by the 2018 IPN law, which criminalized claims of Polish state complicity in Nazi crimes. Supporters see this as protecting the national reputation. However, critics are arguing that it limits open historical discussion and it's very politically driven. So overall, the Polish narrative emphasizes national suffering and heroism and remains highly sensitive to accusations of responsibility. And this can kind of be drawn back to trying to protect their reputation and emphasize the roles that they played in um, helping Jews during the Holocaust and trying to downplay the role that they took in perpetrating the Holocaust.
Now we are going to take a deeper look into some of the conflicting stories. So, the education in Poland often emphasizes the Polish rescuers and downplays the participation of Polish people, which furthers the victimhood perspective. So, it's incredibly important to discuss not only the Polish rescuers, but also examples of how Polish people participated in violence during the Holocaust. So, our first example, the Zagoda, was the only state supported organization that was dedicated to saving Jewish people during this time. Another example of a Polish rescuer was Irina Sendler, who rescued 2,500 children from the Warsaw Ghetto in Poland. And these are both important examples of the heroic actions of Polish people. On the other hand, examples of Polish participation of violence includes Jedwabne, which was a German-occupied Polish town where villagers killed their Jewish neighbors. Additionally, the Kielce pogrom was an outbreak of post-war anti-Semitic violence that took place in Poland. It's also crucial to discuss the differences of Polish and Jewish or Israeli education. So, in Poland, Holocaust education is often framed to highlight Polish suffering and resistance, and teachers will often alter their lessons dependent on the current political climate, and anti Semitism in Poland may be de emphasized. But on the other hand, in Israel, Holocaust education is focused on Nazi anti Semitism. It discusses how the Holocaust is different from other genocides and includes moral lessons about human rights and teaches about anti Semitism today. It is vital to discuss this topic today because the Holocaust was a terrible event for so many different groups of people. And if the Holocaust education only focuses on specific narratives, this may alter how future generations learn and understand what happened during the Holocaust. It is so crucial to honor the victims and survivors by sharing their stories as accurately as possible. And here are our references. Thank you so much for listening.